If we're ready, we'll call the meeting to order. September 14th, regular council. We have regrets from Councillor Guy Surratt. Always an invitation to stand and move around. We do, if you're all aware. We have an agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing no one coming up, I will say the agenda is approved as presented. Any conflict of interest declarations? If you have any conflict of interest, you can declare them now, or you can wait till we come to the item, and if you feel there's a conflict, you can declare it at that time. So we have a presentation. It's Food Cycle Science Corporation, and we have a lady with us by Zoom. Her name is Cassia. And if you're ready with your presentation, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I will go ahead and share my screen if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, good evening, Warden, members of council, and staff. My name is Cassia Renier. I'm a municipal program coordinator with Food Cycle Science. It's a pleasure to be here this evening from Ottawa, and I'm here to discuss a new type of food waste program for your community. So we're a Canadian company. Like I said, we're based in Ottawa, and we're 100% focused on providing food waste diversion solutions. And we do this using our innovative technology called the Food Cycler. And we offer our solutions directly to consumers through partners like Vitamix and Breville, to classrooms through not-for-profit organizations, and to municipalities through our municipal programs. And so we've recently received funding for municipalities from the federal government. So we want to make sure that all Canadian municipalities have the opportunity to learn more and participate. So we are currently partnered with 103 Canadian municipalities from the West Coast to the East Coast in Newfoundland and Labrador there. And we've recently had some really interesting conversations with municipalities in Nova Scotia as well. So our partners are really diverse, but no matter the size or geography, we help them keep food waste out of the landfills. And so the problem with food waste is that it's avoidable, it accounts for a large portion of our household waste, and it's made up of mostly liquid, which is heavy and freezes in the winter. And on top of that, when food waste is either sent to landfills or contaminates a green bin program, it's responsible for generating really harmful greenhouse gases. And so all of these factors make it so that food waste is a problem that has a really strong municipal impact. And we see this both financially and environmentally, like I said, and from a community level, which is true whether food waste is going in the landfill or in a green bin at the end of the road. So there's a lot of benefit to keeping food waste out of the landfill, of course, and just out of somewhere like a bin at the end of the roadway. And when we present our solutions, we often get asked, haven't we solved this already? And as you know, there are solutions like green bins, which are really expensive. Participation rates can vary and be variable throughout the seasons as well. And there are issues with contamination as well. Here in Ottawa, we have really low participation rates for our green bin program, so that's an ongoing concern. People in your community might backyard compost, and we think it's a good idea. However, it's not realistic for everyone. Not everyone has the know-how, the space, or even the desire to do so. And we shouldn't even mention landfilling because it's not sustainable financially or environmentally. And so this evening, I'm very happy to introduce the Food Cycler. So the Food Cycler, here it is. It's this indoor composting alternative. And it's really easy to use. So it has a removable bucket. So you put all your food scraps, all your food waste in the bucket. You put the bucket inside of the unit, close the lid, press start like she's doing here. And in about 4 to 8 hours, so overnight, so kind of like starting your dishwasher, you get this soil amendment product that you see here. So it reduces the weight and volume of food waste by 90%. uses little electricity as well, and the machine can be used anywhere where there's a plug. Most people will put it in their kitchen or a heated garage or a basement. So I will pause that there and move on. And so, like I said, what we're seeing is a reduction in the weight and volume of food waste by about 90%, and doing so using little electricity and just overnight, so up to 8 hours. And for our pilot programs, we have two models of the food cycler. So we have one that's 2.5 liters and one that's 5 liters. And so they both essentially do the same thing. They will process the food waste in up to 8 hours using little electricity. And it has a reusable filter system, which makes the process totally odorless for both units. And so what to do with the byproduct? People have gotten really creative with it. Most people will use it to garden or fertilize their soil, rather. It can be added to a backyard composter. It can be added to a green bin where it's available. So it would theoretically decrease the weight of a green bin for sure. It can be dropped off at a local farm that's accepting it, dropped off at a community garden, and people have even pelletized it and used it for home heating purposes. And so from an environmental standpoint, the food cycler is a net negative carbon solution. So what that means is basically like using solar panels. When you use the food cycler to avoid bringing food waste to the landfill, you're avoiding more greenhouse gases than you're creating in the process. And the same can't be said for other municipal operations, such as waste facilities or waste and recycling collection services that rely on large fleets of emitting vehicles. In addition to the environmental impact, the traditional method of managing waste or even food waste is a really heavily burdened system. It has unrelenting costs. As you know, there's trucking, there's labor, there's maintenance, and the list goes on. But the food cycler is really a decentralized approach that avoids unnecessary additional labor costs, greenhouse gas emissions from trucking and improper food waste breakdown or contamination of an existing program, and any infrastructural cost to the municipality or its residents. And so this is where I think it gets really exciting. So one thing we have learned from working with so many municipalities so far across the country is that residents are really interested in being part of the solution. They want to try new things, they want options, and they want their government to bring these solutions and options to their community. And so I mentioned that we work with several municipalities. So we've completed over 60 pilot programs, and the rest are all ongoing. And the results have really been positive so far. So we have a really high participation rate, really high recommendation rate. We're able to achieve really high net new waste diversion. Many municipalities have also expanded on their pilot programs to more households within the community after the initial pilots. So for example, in Nelson in British Columbia, they did 2 successful pilot programs, and they're now putting a food cycler in every home in their city of 11,000 people. And so a few months ago, I mentioned that we received some funding. So this funding is still available, and it would certainly include your community should you be interested. And we're distributing this funding across Canadian municipalities who wish to launch new pilot programs before the end of the year. And so here's the typical structure of a pilot program. So they're 12 weeks from start to finish. Residents start by purchasing their food cycler at a subsidized rate. They use the unit, they track the number of cycles per week that they complete. At the end, the residents get to keep their food cycler, and we ask them to complete a brief survey. So sort of like a feasibility study, if you will. And then this data can be used to support any future waste management decision-making, or can accompany a recommendation or grant for a program expansion. And so the funded pilot programs work based on a shared subsidy model, rather. So Food Cycle Science, we provide an initial discount from the retail price, and then we add in the Impact Canada investment that is still available to get the units reduced by about 50%. And then we suggest that the municipality invests $100 per household for the pilot, and then the resident is responsible for the remaining amount. And of course, at the end of the 12 weeks, the food cycler is theirs to keep. And here we have some pilot size recommendations. So for a municipality of your size, we'd recommend a pilot program of about 100 households. And this is based on our experience so far. So that's all I have this evening. So I would ask that you kindly receive this presentation as information, and should there be any interest in partnering on a pilot program, I would ask that you refer this to staff for a report and recommendation. So thank you so much for welcoming me.
Anybody have any questions? Councillor Sonia.
Hi, Cassia. Nice presentation. I'm guessing there's some foods that will not compost in that composter, like bacon fats and stuff like that.
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor. So that's a good question. The only thing we recommend really not putting in the smaller unit is like beef bones in both units. Something like thick, like a pork shoulder, we recommend not putting in. Large amounts of grease as well, like you mentioned, should be avoided. But if it's just small amounts, it's okay. We say that the food cycle likes a mixed diet, like we should all be eating. And pineapple leaves is also something that's very tough for the machine. Other than that, the larger unit can take all food waste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So with the, I mean, you're not going to fill that every day. So do you have to wait till it's full before you start operating it, or does it operate as if you put a little bit today and you start it and then you can add stuff to it later? Is that the way that works?
Thank you for your question, Warden. Yes, that's exactly how it works. So sort of like a dishwasher, it can wait until it's full to be started. There's a lid that will take any odors or prevent any odors rather as well. So you can kind of fill it up as you go throughout the week.
Okay. Well, Councillor D'Entremont.
Just wondering where, I mean, in food, there's all kinds of water. So where exactly does the water go? How does that work?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. So I'll do my best to answer. I'm not an engineer, but basically what the machine does is it grinds up the food waste to a really fine product, and then it dehydrates it, so it reduces all of the moisture. So there is, you don't see it, but there is like steam technically that comes out, but you don't see it. That's, yeah, it takes the moisture. I'm not an engineer. I know it dehydrates, grinds, and then heats up the food waste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Deputy CL.
So you mentioned there is subsidy from your, I guess maybe your company or the province, however you have some funding. So how would that work if the municipality would be interested in this program? What would be the process?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. So we would apply so there's two parts. There's our investment that we provide. So it's sort of like a bulk discount from our company. And then we do have that federal funding from Impact Canada that we would include right off the bat. So it reduces the cost of the units by about 50%, including the Impact Canada investment. So as soon as a municipality signs a partnership, we reserve part of that funding and it goes directly to the municipality.
Councillor D'Entremont.
So in the pilot projects that you've done across Canada, so I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around the machine versus our green bin. Does it eliminate the green bin, or do we still need a green bin, or how does that all work?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. It's a really good question. In places where there are green bin programs, it can be a nice complement. It can also replace a green bin program. Yes, I understand that when there are things in place, it's very difficult to completely replace something, but it can be a very nice complement for people who don't like the green bin Like here in Ottawa, we have a lot of people that don't use it. And so something like a food cycler allows them to keep their food waste out of the garbage. So it really depends on the municipality. It can replace or go nicely with.
Thanks.
Thank you.
If I may, before I've got Councillor Sonia, when you're saying that there's a possibility of replacing the green bin, but if this machine doesn't do it all, then you would never, there's still some items that would have to go in the green bin, or if you don't, then it ends up in the garbage, which is totally opposite of what our programs are. You know, you try to stay away from putting compostables in your garbage. So I guess by saying it might or it could, I kind of have to wonder because of the fact that it doesn't handle all the items that you would normally put in the green bin. Is that correct?
Thank you for your question, and it's a good point, Warden. So I am thinking of our program in Nelson, where they have actually chosen to go with a food cycler program instead of a green bin program, and they have local drop-off sites where people are dropping off their byproduct, and so items like, let's say, a pork shoulder that wouldn't go in the food cycler, people can drop off that food waste which is very minimal. That will be composted. So it's a question of taking a look at the community after a program is implemented and then making sure that there are things in place where food waste is just not going to end up in the landfill, where people are going to have the option to do something about that food waste, because that's a very good point, and I agree, absolutely.
Okay. Councillor Sonia.
Thank you. This is kind of like a follow-up from your question and Councillor Mo's question. I'm looking at the dollars and cents in volume. Is this a cost-cutting device? Will it lessen the volume of our garbage? I don't know if you can answer that. Maybe our own waste check can answer that question, but I'm wondering if it's going to cut the amount of garbage that's put out and the cost. Because that would be very attractive.
Thank you for your question, and I'm happy you asked that. Yes, it is a cost-saving solution, absolutely. I'd be happy to provide some more data on that, and if I have a little bit more insight on your municipality's cost for waste, I'd be happy to provide an estimate of what the cost savings would be. But absolutely, we're helping municipalities save a lot on their waste management. Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Donaldson.
Yes, good evening. I guess a couple questions. Well, information first. Our municipality, we have a 2 blue bag system. We have the clear bag, which will be coming in place as black bag now, but soon going to clear bag. And every household is supplied with the green bin. So we're far ahead of a lot of municipalities across Canada. But the particular machine that you're promoting, how did you arrive at that? Because there's several on the market, right? Was it a competitive bid on which machine you chose and how that?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. So if I'm understanding correctly, so our company produces our machine. So we've been, I haven't been with them since 2011, but we've been a company since 2011. And there are other similar products on the market. No other companies like this partner with municipalities and provide the products as a municipal solution. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure that it does, and I apologize if it doesn't.
I just wondering how you come about with this machine. So it's somewhat of a commercial venture along with waste reduction. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, yeah, yes. If you're asking if we're a private company, yes, we are a private company, but we do partner with the local governments. Okay. Yes.
And around here, the big thing will it handle lobster shells?
That's a good question. Thank you for your question. Our engineers are doing tests on lobster. I know that because we have more Eastern communities that we've partnered with. I am 99% sure that yes, but I should check in with them this week to ask them. But yeah, yes, it should. It's yes.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Deputy Warden.
Thank you. In your presentation, I saw there were two separate machines. I'm assuming one would be the larger one, like for a family, smaller one for less people in the household. And there were two separate costs. There was $150 or $300. Am I correct in assuming that that is why the costs are different?
Thank you for your question, Deputy Warden. Yes, it's the size. That's why the cost is different. And the larger unit is a newer unit as well. So it has a bit more of a robust grinding mechanism,
Okay.
which does make the cost a little bit higher. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I understood that if we were to decide to jump on this pilot, it would be roughly 100 residents. Our cost would be $100 per resident. So how would that, let's say we went through with this and we had our 100 residents who decided to come on board with this pilot and they really liked it. And we decided to go forward with this. What would be the cost? Would it still be at this discounted rate or would it be like the full rate for the residents?
Thank you for your question, Deputy Warden. So the cost would actually be further reduced from the pilot program. Okay. And that would depend on a number of factors. We can really tailor it depending on what the municipality wants and needs, but the cost of the units would be further discounted, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
CEO Muse.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions on the product itself. Is there an established useful life for the food processing machine and warranties associated with that? How much experience do you have with longevity on this?
Thank you for your question. That's a really good question. So our smaller unit that has been on the market for over 10 years now has about a 5 to 7 year life expectancy. And there is a standard 1-year warranty on that one. Our larger unit, which is the unit that would be deployed in programs beyond a pilot program, that has a modular build. So, sorry, I should mention, it has about a 7 to 10 year lifespan expectancy, and it has a modular build. So whenever a part of the machine needs to be replaced, or if something is at its end of life, the individual part can be replaced to kind of further that lifespan. And we also offer a municipality, if it is doing a program expansion, it can purchase additional warranties per household for X amount of years. And those are all further discussions that we could have, but about 7 to 10 years on that Eco 5, that larger unit.
Okay, it permit me,
Thank you.
Warden. This is actually a comment for the council. So, in understanding the opportunity that is presented to you here today, I don't know what the cost savings would be on this, but I'm just want to tell you what it was last year. So last year, your compost purchases, that means the purchase of green bins. So keep in mind, you initially bought about $270,000 worth of composters. Some of you were here when it happened. Those had an estimated useful life of about 20 years. Some of them are running on 30. And each year we're billed by Waste Check for replacements of the large compost bins, unless there's a trade out. So for large for smaller, there's a smaller model. Anyway, that being said, it was $17,000 that we were billed last year, and that's expected to continue because as you have new people coming in or things come at end of life, you'll be purchasing those. So there is a cost of the compost side of things that we need to be cognizant of. The second is the organics cost. So we're billed on metric tonnage for compost. As you know, it's picked up at the green bin and delivered to the compost facility in Yarmouth. The total, I don't have the information on the metric tonnage, But I do know that it cost the municipality $62,000 last year in we were billed that for them accepting that material and utilizing it for their purpose. So again, compost is dealt with by the town of Yarmouth. Everything else is dealt with all 3 units. They still own the compost facility that we have. So it's really, it's partially to do with the presentation, because if you're looking at, there's costs in either in either solution. There are costs, so we'd have to really dig in and analyze that if this was something that was an interest beyond pilot, right? Pilot is what you're being asked here today, so that's a whole different consideration. So anyway, I just wanted to give you that information.
Thank you. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you very much. Mr. Warden, great presentation, by the way. I tell you, it's too bad possibly that you're giving it in September instead of April. And the only reason I say that is that's when we hear a lot about compost and flies and wanting to see if we can get a second run on, each week to pick up the compost and all that. It may definitely be something that if us as a council may not want to look into it, it may be something that some people would be willing to go themselves. And because we always hear about, sometimes rats around the compost bins or raccoons around the compost bins or the flies or the maggots or something. And this may be one way to help them out there if council sees fit and the people see fit or whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I have Councillor Gore.
Yeah, thank you. I've been watching different products of this type of thing. I didn't think it was real. You see it on Facebook, and I wasn't sure sometimes about scams. But now you're showing me this, and I'm like, yay! I
promise it's real.
I wouldn't mind having one myself, because I have a little bin that I put in the green bin, and like Glenn has said, there's always fruit flies, and then when we go in the green bin. So when you put this, if you put this in the green bin, is there still an order, and would they still be maggots and things like that?
Thank you for your question. An important question. Flies and maggots are not fun. No, the byproduct is odorless, and in fact, sometimes it smells almost like if you put coffee grinds, like coffee grinds. It's very odorless. So no, it does not attract maggots, flies, or anything like that. So if it does go in a bin that's on the counter, it won't attract anything, and it's dry as well.
Yeah, so maybe if we did have something like that, I know that a compost in Yarmouth, the pile, me and Glenn went to it's full of plastic. People still put plastic in the compost, so maybe this would stop that, and we'd have better compost. Thank you. I like your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Saulnier.
I guess I'll direct this question more to our CAO, because you're talking about the cost, and I'm trying to wrap my head. If this was not so much a pilot project, but if we were to implement that through the whole of the municipality, people would have to buy this, and some people probably couldn't afford to buy it. Would we, if there's enough, I guess what I'm saying, there should be a study into the feasibility or the money saving part of this, and the cutting down or of the garbage as well, that maybe you'd be able to subsidize these units to the public if our cost is down enough at the very beginning. I don't know if I'm making myself clear here or not.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I think that the good part about this pilot project is that we're not the first. So it's seemingly a lot of data that this particular organization or municipalities that are utilizing this could be more than happy to disclose. Municipalities across the country have hopefully, I think, have been known to be rather transparent about how these things work. So, I mean, to me, just logistically, if it reduces your metric tonnage by 90% every time you grind it, I'm I'm not going to go down the math road, but 90% is a big number, right? So I know that historically this region has subsidized in its entirety assets that have been used, like green bins, et cetera. Like there are some exceptions to that. Like if somebody's getting a really small one, they're usually expected to buy those themselves. But we have historically subsidized some of these products because we wanted to motivate the residents to do what we were being told was the right thing. So this might be an evolution of that. We can get that data from those municipalities easily, and we can see how it works, and which ones are still using the green bin program, which ones never had one, et cetera. We can get that for you. In terms of a pilot project, I don't know if it defines what you want to do there, because a pilot's a pilot. Like I think the cost was rather clear. It's like $5,000. You might get 100 households, and I don't want to advocate that decision on your behalf, but that's what I'm hearing. So I think that's more in line of, okay, we're going to go heavier, and so what are the cost savings, and can they get allocated? The answer is yes, they can. The other thing is that anything that you do with solid waste always attracts federal gas tax funding support. So you might be in the position where your subsidy may not come from operations at all. It may come from federal gas tax. So you do have options around that. I'm not suggesting that's what you do, but you certainly have a lot of options to consider there. And I think the presentation suggested that the price that she was proposing to the resident was $100 and $150 or something, and that was a subsidized price. So it did include a portion of subsidy from us, as well as from them and from other sources.
Thank you.
Councillor Woodrow.
Thank you. Hi, Cassie. A great presentation. I've got one question. You mentioned that the larger machine could grind bones, right?
Thank you for your question. Yes.
Yeah. How loud or how long will it take that machine to grind like a prime rib bone? Is it going to be noisy?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So like a bone, like kind of like a pork shoulder, like a really thick T-bone steak, we recommend not putting in the food cycler. It will kind of jam the machine. That is kind of like the only thing to not put in. The machine itself is about as loud as maybe a dishwasher, maybe a little bit less loud, so you don't hear it. It's not, the noise is not a concern.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Well, seeing no more questions, I want to thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting. And like Councillor Bork said, I've seen that, maybe not this machine, but I've seen similar machines being advertised, and often wondered, do they work, or is this just something that I'll buy and it'll be thrown in the garage in the back shelf? So it's good to know that you have it being used, and apparently it does work. So again, thank you very much. It's not something we're going to just jump and decide right now. It needs to be discussed, and I guess we have enough information here in order for council to be able to debate it and look at the pluses and minuses of what this would do for us. So again, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you so much, Warden, and have a great rest of your meeting and evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will continue. And the next item is recognizing Argyle. We've been off for summer, and I'm wondering if any councillor has things they would like to bring. And I have Councillor Sonia first.
Thank you. I have 3 items. They encompass the entirety of Argyle in some capacity, I guess. So I'll start with the first one. Wedgeport hosted the 19th annual tuna tournament. There was plenty of tuna and fun events for the whole week, including the crowning of our new tournament queen, Sophia Thibodeau. This was all made possible through many volunteers, and it was very successful. And I want to thank the organizers and the volunteers for that. Thank you. Second, we had a presentation here put on by Alex Dontermo. There was a few counselors here with us, and Alex had a professional team where we had lots of questions answered, and it was basically about the aquaculture, the ADA, and they were highlighting oyster and kelp farming in our waters here. So after the presentation, we also had a field trip, or I guess you can call it a water trip. Councillor Burke and I went with them, and it was a beautiful sail. We went and visited the sites and the potential sites. It was a good trip. It gave us a chance to ask even more questions. And it does open the doors for growth and for job opportunity in Argyle. And I want to thank Alex for all the hard work he did and his staff. And third, I attended the grand opening of the new Kidzac studio at the old Tuscan Toyota building right here in Tuscan. Kidzac has come a long ways. It has an enrollment of almost 400 kids now. It's in line with hockey, baseball, soccer. It's part of the Argyle or Yarmouth fabric. It's in there. It's a great organization. It takes the youth off the street. It gives them skills in social skills and leadership skills, and of course the dance. There's a lot of people to say thank you to, but I will end by saying, on behalf of the kids, thank you for Kids Act.
Thank you. Councillor Boudreau.
Thank you. I also want to mention or thank the people involved in the tuna tournament. It was a huge success. Thanks to the volunteers, the donators, the sponsors, also the people that participated in all the events. There was supposed to be an open house for the Westporton District Fire Department. That's been postponed due to the inclement weather that's coming our way. And the Wedgeport Legion also has a fundraiser that will be held at the Wedgeport School on Sunday, October 1st at 2 p.m. So hopefully they'll bring in a lot of people and help raise money for the Legion. I also attended the Kids Act, and congratulations, they finally found a home. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Donaldson.
Yes. Festival seems to be the theme this evening, but thanks to a core group of volunteers, the Buptic Festival was going stronger than it has in a lot of years, I believe 35 years. And I think some of the success is having a lot of food events. It brings the people out. And I also attended the grand opening of the Glenwood Park volleyball court and kayak canoe launch. And I've been keeping an eye on it every now and then. I drive through, and it appears that it is being used quite regularly. So that was a great improvement, and I thank the Recreation Department for spearheading the majority of this, and hopefully there's more improvements on the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you very much. I also attended the Kids Act, and I didn't know it was going to come up on both sides of me tonight, but I'm glad it did. It's really something for the young people around here. It's something for the parents, and it's really nice to see all of the coaches and everybody putting into it as much as they do. And I know we have one lady over here tonight that's smiling quite a bit. Our Chantel is a big part of that. And we hear nothing but great things about her from the kids, from the parents. And thank you what you people are doing with these children, with these kids out there. It's a great thing for everyone involved. Another thing I'd like to bring up, I'm not sure if I did or not, but the West Pubnico Fire Department had ordered a side-by-side from Paul d'Entremont Marine. They, after things got going and they started thinking about it a little bit and looking at the lakes that are around the area and that, they called up and canceled the side-by-side. And they said Julie, who was the owner now of Paul d'Entremont Marine, Paul's daughter, they said, we'd like to cancel our side-by-side, but we will be getting a motor from you for a rescue craft that we'd like to buy. And she said, by all means, no problem at all. Fast forward a couple of months or so, Julie called and said, your side-by-side is in. And they said, well, Julie, we canceled our side-by-side. She said, yeah, I know. And your side-by-side is in. So Julie took it upon herself to order the side-by-side. She donated it to the West Pubnico and East Pubnico fire departments, which we know through the mutual aid agreement, it's there for any departments or any organizations that may need to use it in a time of an emergency. So our hats off to Julie and Paul d'Entremont Marine for that. The West Pubnico Fire Department has also put a rescue craft in service, and they put it in service last week or so, and they had their first call last night. And that's, so it's well used, it's been used, and hats off, like I say, when you have businesses like Paul d'Entremont Marine and Julie helping out your fire departments and all that around, kudos to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Deputy
you.
Warden.
Going along the same theme as Councillor Donaldson said, the Quinnan community had their Labor Day picnic again this year. It was not on last year because they didn't have the volunteer base to have it, but this year it was alive and well, and it was very, very busy, so it was good to see that it was up again. On the 15th of August, I attended at Le Village for the warden, because the warden was away. Our Premier Tim Houston signed a proclamation saying that August is now officially Acadian History Month. So that was exciting to be a part of. And very exciting news, Eelbrook has started construction on their new building. So that's exciting. That's it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Board.
Yes, thank you. And to continue with the theme, in August, the both East and West Improvement Societies got together, and they did a lawn theme that you decorated for the Acadian Festival, and it went well. I think a lot of people are probably waiting for next year for the Congrès Mondial, but the decorations that they did put out were very nice. The winners did a very good job. So I thank the East and West Improvement Societies. Yesterday, I went to Barrington or Centerville, I guess I went to a meeting, and it was a presentation, and it was Anika, I think. Anyway, this here is they have these equipment, and it's to convert salt water to fresh water, and it was quite the presentation. And Barrington's gonna have a pilot project, so I'm gonna get updates of what goes on with that project. So it's very interesting. They have like a buoy. They call it a buoy, but it's not very big. It's no bigger than this here. They have different sizes, and then the technology they have, the water goes in by wave. That's how the energy. There's no fuel or anything like that. It's all wave energy. So the water goes in, then it's piped into wherever you want to send the water, and it's not like, it wouldn't be good like for the harbor, like say a Pummico Harbor, it would be outside. I don't know how many. I forgot what they said, how far it went out, but it's not that far, but it's not close either. So anyway, they're having a pilot project off of Cape Island. So I'll give you an update, and if you want any information, I do have a card that you can call them up, or we can look online to see what goes on with that.
Thank you. And I had every intention of going to that, and I did not put it on my calendar. And you know what happens when you don't put it in. No, you know what happens when I don't put it on my calendar. Thank for that, Councillor Port. Councillor Donchamal.
I guess I also have to follow the themes of festival. There was the Semaine Acadienne that was put on this summer again. I'd like to congratulate and thank that committee and those people for putting it on again, and also on the theme that Councillor Digdon have about the side-by-side donated by Paul D'Entre Marine. I've been very fortunate through an organization I belong to, Delta Waterfowl, which is a duck hunters organization. We put together Youth Day for kids, and we always get donations from Paul D'Entremont Marine every year, all the time. So that's, I guess kudos to her and Paul D'Entremont for stepping up to the plate once again. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And for myself, again, I attended all kinds of festivals and whatever. It's all in my, I've included in my report, so I'm not going to go over. Mostly it's the same. It's the same that other councillors were attending. So, thank you. The next thing is the adoption of minutes. We have the August 30th special council meeting minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? If you've had a chance to go over them. And seeing no one stepping up, the minutes stand approved as presented. Next is my report. I don't know if anybody has any questions. For me, it wasn't as busy a summer as I usually have for some reason. You know, I was still busy, but not, I've seen it a lot busier for me in the summer than this past summer. Well, I took a vacation. I went away for a week, and that was a Semaine Acadienne, and so I missed a few of the things that were. The next is committee reports. Do we want me to go through each one? Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission, is there anything to report on that one? Mariner Center Management Authority, there's an attachment on that one. Councillor Dickton.
Thank you. Just like looking at the Remo executive that
Okay.
was there. That's it's been working really well, the Remo, with the Regional Emergency Measures Organization. As a lot of you people know, that we have a new person in charge in there now, and Shane has had his hands full since he's taken that position, but he's doing a very good job of it. The Remo building, they've done a lot of upgrades inside of it, and making it much better to use if they have to use it in an emergency. So
Okay.
things seem to be going well.
That's
there.
good. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one is the Mariner Center expansion. Anything?
I can just mention that I sent out an email that we've passed our communication strategy, which is important because it's important to know, how we're going to speak to the communities and how we're going to keep people updated. So we've established that, and that's kind of, we will be talking about that later on.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Yarmouth and Acadian Shores.
So as the summer tourism season goes along for our staff and are busy, working, but one of the things that we've been working on as a board is the levy and the transition to a new levy system. So that's ongoing. So that's basically what the board's been up to this summer. So thank you.
Thank you. Nikhil Board. Nothing really to report at this point. The libraries, nothing. The REN liaison, and that would be Councillor Surratt, who's absent tonight. Argyle Recreation Commission, anything to report on that? Nothing to report. Joint Police Advisory, nothing to report. Doctor Recruitment and Retention, nothing right now. Waste Check,
It's not to do with waste check. I'm going to go back to 8A. With Guy's absence, I should mention that on the Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission, the Yarmouth South Medical Center is now under the Nova Scotia Health Authority.
Okay.
And it seems to be going well, and they're in negotiations with, again, Nova Scotia Health Authority for the Pumlico Clinic.
Mhm.
And the ports, they're still working with the new board, setting things up, training. So things are moving forward there. So eventually, hopefully not too long from now, the ports will be in the hands of a committee and not municipal councilors.
That's great.
So
Yeah.
it's moving along fine. So
Thank you. And the last one is the Substance Use Awareness Project. Nothing there to report. We have reports, the clerk's report. You've all seen it. I don't know if there's any questions. It's a report that we just add things to it as things come along. Anybody have any questions? Seeing none. Department head report, that will be available at the executive in September. Building permit, any questions on that? We have the 3 months here. Okay, the next thing is we have 3 items for 7-day notice. There's a draft for Article P5A, employee definition, and I see our Deputy CL.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. As I mentioned to you before the summer, one of my tasks is to kind of review some of the policies that we have, but certainly the HR policy. So you will see as we go along, there will be policies being brought up to council. And tonight's the first 2 policies that I've been dealing with is the A and B. So the A1, the employee definition, is basically where we need to start. We need to define. You will see if you look at the policy. There's everything in red is kind of new language. Strike through is what I suggest we remove. And we start there because we need to define what our type of employees we have, like full-time, part-time, term employees. So I just kind of, not that it was wrong, I just kind of tightened up and clarified some things in the definitions. If there's any questions around that, I can open.
Anybody? No questions. So the other one is the procurement policy. You covered the first 2, is that what? Yeah.
I could make I could make comments on the sick leave if that's
Okay.
that's okay. So the sick leave, just want to make a few comments on that one because there's quite a few red, as you can see if you go through the policy. So the 2 major issues is because of the 4-day work week, we need to track the sick days in hours now. That's it, because we have the 4-day work week. We have people that are working 5 hours, some that are working 7 hours, some people are working 8.75 hours a day. So to keep track of that, it's just easier to do it by hours. So we've learned over our pilot period that we need to track it by hours. So a lot of those changes have to do with the hours, changing days to hours. The other piece that is a major change in the policy is because we went to the 4-day work week, we've asked staff to plan their medical appointments or dental appointments on the day that they're off. But we know that that's not always the case. And just use me, for example, my dentist is off on Monday and closed on Friday. So I definitely need to go during work hours. But currently, the way the system is, if people are taking dental or a medical appointment, they basically get it for free. It's not deducted from anywhere. But now with the new language, and I think it's 7.1, I could be wrong, um, we will be, if you need 2 hours to go to a dental appointment, then you will be deducted 2 hours off your sick leave. So that's kind of new. Staff is aware of that. We've already given the heads up. But other than that, those are the two major changes in the sick leave policy.
Question, Councillor Sonia?
Thank you. Scott, the reason for a 4-day week was because most municipalities are moving into a 4-day week. And we didn't want to be disadvantaged and start losing employees and such. So in light of that, is the policy or the changes you've done, are they in sync with other municipalities, or is this unique to Argyle?
Good question. I did confirm with 2 other municipalities that are doing the same thing that we're doing now. Yes. But I can't confirm for all, but
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dickton?
Thank you very much. I was just looking over the sick policy and I was just wondering, I'm not sure, but I don't believe I've seen it in there or not. But if you have an employee that's full-time, uses very little of their sick time, and they happen to plan on going on vacation next week for 4 days, and they take 4 days off on vacation, or supposedly, if they're sick for those 4 days that you have scheduled off, can they use those as sick days through the municipality?
very good question. There is language around that deals with that, but you need to provide proof that you were
Yep.
sick, like a medical note or whatever. But definitely they can be changed from vacation day to sick days if you can prove that you were sick, yes.
Good, because I just hate to see them losing on both ends
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I think really there's going to have to be a little give and take on that too. And I don't know, I'm not saying, but it's hard now to get a doctor or whatever to write you a note for proof. So, I think a lot of it may come down to an honor system, but I think you pretty well know in your organization, what's going on. So, yeah.
Yeah. No.
Thank you.
Good point.
Good, thank you.
Okay, the next one is the procurement policy. And I see our CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So on the procurement policy, the changes that have been recommended for 7-day notice are actually just to make sure that the language is consistent with the Procurement Act. So in doing these changes, I've consulted the Sustainable Procurement Guidelines, the Procurement Act, the Engineering and Architecture Construction Services Guidelines. All these things were provided by the province of Nova Scotia. I was motivated to do this a while back, and then I received some questions from a manager from another organization who's trying to do this for their own organization. I was like, I better get my things in order if I'm going to give advice to another organization to do it for them. So the changes are minor, but they speak more towards when we do competitive bids and when we do invitation to tender. This was certainly raised by Kyle as our operations person, as tenders used to be one of the best ways to provide a competitive price for municipalities. But in this day and age, that's not as true because many of our contractors are less interested in filling out 85,000 pages. They're more interested in filling out one and doing work for Councillor Boudreau as opposed to the municipality of Argyle, for instance. More than enough work going around. So we're trying to open it up a bit so that we don't have to go to tender on every little thing. Also, the upgrades on the costs are to reflect reality. So we're saying that that we can do tenders. We would do tenders for goods greater than 25,000. So that's a flagpole. That's goods, right? That's material. 50,000 and above for architecture or services, and 100,000 above for construction. So if we have construction below $100,000, which doesn't happen very often, but it does, we can get invitational bids and we don't have to go all the way to tender. So that will attract more people to do work for us. Also, as you know, not that we had to change the policy to do this, we are a member of Kinetic GPO, yeah. I've mispronounced that many times. So, which is a federal a standing offer. So, and we've actually taken advantage of that, as you know, to do the track and field construction, which is literally going on right now. Right. So I just want to explain some of the background. Where does this come from? Why is this happening? So it is all informed by the provincial government. There may be a grammatical error that I just noticed, but that won't actually change the 7-day notice on the item. So are there any questions or concerns? I'm here. It can be now or it can be before we approve it at the next meeting.
No questions? Okay, we're number 11 for decision and discussion. A is J-Class Subdivision Road Submission. And that's a letter we get. We get that every year, right?
We do.
And it's just that if we had a J-Class road that we feel that we would like to upgrade, that we can put it on the list. Doesn't mean we'll get it, but we can put it on our priority list, but then it's cost shared. And this is under the old system.
Correct.
This is still the old system, the system we're in now, not the one that they're proposing. If we did that now, it doesn't mean that we would have to assume ownership of that road under this agreement here, because it's still the old agreement. So I guess what we need is, do we have anything? Do we have a road or anything that anybody wants to bring up? I guess, or do we just make a motion that we're not submitting this year? Or
so from the staff perspective, we basically didn't dig in deep on any particular road until we understand what your intentions might be on this program.
right?
And then if your intentions were to participate, you need to know that that's going to be at a cost. And so that comes with its pros and cons, right? You're going to put cost into this, obviously, and you may not be selected. Or if you choose not to do it, then it's just
Do we
thank you very
still?
much.
So we don't need a motion if we're not going to do anything. Or do we need a motion to indicate that we are not interested in?
As long as I have clarity on what your intentions are, I don't necessarily need a motion to say no.
Okay.
If it's consensus that, we're just not going to do that this year, that's fine. If I don't have a motion supporting this in any way, I'm just going to file it under File 19, and that's the end of it. And I've done that for many years, in fact, because we haven't done this very often. But it's up to you, council, because I didn't want to make any presumptions.
Councillor Sonia.
So you said if we put that application in, it comes at a cost, right?
50%.
It would be a 50% cost share.
50% cost share.
So
Okay.
what you're submitting is this is the road that requires repair, in our opinion, and we're prepared to pay 50% for the capital cost.
Does it have any bearing on the future plans of the provincial government?
It ought not to. We don't actually know what they're going to land on in the new program. This falls under the old program, which there's no ownership transition at all. It is simply, it is, I would call it an expedition, not an expediting, of work. So, the provincial government may choose a J-class road to do some form of maintenance or repair, or may choose another road if it's to that deterioration. What you're saying is this is the road, right? And we want you to focus on this one, and here's half of the cost. So that's usually encouraging to them, because they obviously would only pay half to do that work. They don't always pick the one. They don't always agree that it's in the condition that the council might think it is. The other slight disadvantage we have here is that we're not in the business of assessing quality of roads. We can't, there's no engineering services that we would hire, so it's all visual. If you've got a beautiful pave and it's completely undermined under, we'd have no idea, because it's not our business it's not what we do. Right?
Okay. So I guess the consensus is that we just let it slide this year. We don't ask for any road. Yep, that's what it appears like. The next one is a road safety concern, Argyle Highway 103. And I'm going to pass that on to our deputy CAO first, and then
Just one point, it's Route 3.
well, that's what I know. It's when you read the letter, it's from Highway 103 to a certain, yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Yeah, I think it means from the Highway 103 going towards that civic number. So, we had a resident drop in, spoke to one of our staff with a couple of complaints. So this was had a complaint around just the speeding that's happening in that particular area. A lot of curves and kind of hills. And she almost got involved in an accident. So she was asking if what could we do. I just kind of shared three options that we could possibly consider. One is we could put our speed radar sign out there so that we could gather information, and if we wanted to proceed and send it to the RCMP, then we'd have some information to share, not just this one complaint. Two, we could just write a letter, I guess, to the RCMP or TIR to kind of look at that situation, the safety situation, or three, we don't do nothing as it's only one complaint of one resident. So I leave it up to council what decision they want to do.
I have it, Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, thank you. I know the lady in particular you're talking about. She's talked to me, she's talked to Glenn. I've talked to Colton, he's aware of the situation. I would suggest putting up the speed sign for the time being. It's at the end of my driveway now, so I never register more than 10 kilometers because I'm always turning in. But no, I would suggest putting it up probably, what would you say, where the apartments are? Because that's probably the sharpest turn.
Yes, and just the other side is a school zone as well, so that might be a good idea around there somewhere, yeah. And this lady lives right in the middle of a hill, and there's a hill going up by her driveway and a curb on the bottom, so, yeah.
But we can have a motion if that's, and then we can discuss the motion.
We're probably talking about two different people. There's two complaints in. Yeah.
He just.
Yeah, I know who he's talking about too.
Okay.
And
okay.
Remember at the Baptist Festival, the lady, she was talking about the same area. Yeah, so there's actually two people.
Two different people.
Yeah.
So there's suggestions here, and I guess from what I understand, we can have a motion to do recommendation number or suggestion number one, or if that's what you want, in order to that we can put the speed radar. So that's your motion.
Yes. And just to comment, actually on the way here tonight, there was a half-ton truck stop. Two people looking under the front of it right there in that area, right close to there. I assume that they just hit a deer.
It's dangerous. So are you seconding? Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
So
Yes, the reason I know it was up where I was looking at the number of the person that wrote the letter here, and I was looking at the number, so yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It's moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. The next item sale of excess lands, and I should pass that on probably to our CAO.
This is to council. This is a relatively straightforward one. Myself and Kyle Boudreau, as well as actually Bonnie, all three of us kind of took a look at our inventory of land. When we saw a lot of the deed transfer taxes kind of exploding and populations moving left and right, the demand for land and land value has increased. So it's what we own, the value has increased rather significantly in the last 2 years. So we're taking a look at the list of land and determining which ones are surplus. We've done this before. We've gone through the list, and oftentimes things that you might use, often you don't use them anymore, et cetera. So at the end of the day, what we'd like to do is we have a list of surplus lands that we believe are surplus, and we'd like to use a realtor to assist us in setting them up, advertising, and selling them for market. We're not in the business of doing that. We don't, and actually, we don't always do it well. So one of the things that we would do, just so that you're aware, is that we'd make sure that we can actually sell these properties, that they are sellable if they're migrated or whatever the case may be. Sometimes ownership is a little dicey, especially on things that we might pick up on tax sales. So with time, the tax deeds become much more powerful. After 6 years, they become powerful. So it erases some of the ambiguity that might be associated with some of this. So so I'm proposing, and I will say that our director of operations is a realtor, licensed realtor. So we can assure you that under no circumstances will the work go to benefit anyone that is employed here or anyone employed with the realty agency that he deals with. So we'll be dealing with a third party. So we haven't selected who that is. We're just asking you permission to do that. I think the realtor, based on the legal work and the realtor, they'll come with a list to you, and then you can be comforted that you can approve that list once it comes to you. So the first step is to start with getting the realtor, and that's what we're asking for a motion for to this effect. The benefits and all of the history is in the request for decision if you had any questions about that.
Okay. I have one question. Is that okay? Okay. So with the realtor, we would just be identifying more. We would just be identifying more if they're saleable or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Not deciding they're going to go up for sale.
No.
That's the next. Then that has to come back to us. And the reason I'm asking that is with affordable housing and housing crisis, sometimes we're asked, well, does the municipality have any land that they could, and if we sell everything that we have surplus and that comes up, then it could be an issue in respect to that. That's just why I was asking it. We're just identifying it now. Nothing will go for sale.
No, nothing will go for sale. What we need is, first we need to do a little bit of due diligence on our end to see if it's something we can sell, and then the realtor can help us with that. The realtor would determine whether or not it ought to be. Is this a marketable product? I will say that the lands that we own that are surplus are not particularly attractive to a housing type development. It
Right.
may be that it was sold to put a house on it, for instance, but it may not. None of them would be large enough to be suitable for that purpose.
Okay.
And in fact, what we might be doing here is with that surplus, council may decide that with that money that you invest in another, maybe more suitable piece of land. So that could also happen as well. None of that's going to happen without your approval. So the realtor is just helping us determine which ones really should be put out.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Digdon, I didn't mean to overstep, but
You done well, sir. No problem overstepping me. I'd be willing to make that motion.
okay,
Thank
it's
you.
moved and seconded. Any more discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. Education sponsorship policy. Now, is that a new policy or are we amending the policy? We've already discussed this. This has already come. It's here for a decision tonight.
Correct.
So, are there any questions, comments, or are we ready for a motion to accept and approve the policy?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. Grants, these are letters of support that we've all, oh, I'm sorry. Shh, go ahead.
I just want to mention that on this item that you're about to talk about, there was one missing from the agenda, but it's listed in your RFD. It's for Glenwood Hall, but if you refresh your page, it will be on your page now. Just
Okay.
letting you know. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Yep, I'll refresh my page. So some of these came, there was a deadline, and we knew we were going to have a meeting. We weren't going to have a meeting in time for the deadline. So most of these we've agreed upon through email. So what we're going to do, if it's okay, there's a memo. And we can approve, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 there that can be approved with one motion, if that's okay. So the motion is to approve the letters for the Musée Argyle de Pamlico, upgrading their interpretive space, Plymouth Hall safety improvements, East Pamlico New Horizon Seniors Club, accessibility upgrades, Surrey's Island Social Club, upgrades to the facility, and Glenwood Hall, purchasing new chairs for events. So we have it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on these? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. We have a couple more. The IWK Integrated Youth Service Letter of Support. And what this is the IWK is in the process of trying to provide youth in our region with an amazing opportunity. They're looking for proposals from across the province to place 8 IYS sites in the next 2 years. And we have an organization through CAPEB who would like to offer to be able to get one of those in the area. But what they would like is a letter of support from us that we support their application. And go ahead, Councillor Bork.
What is a IYS?
It is the integrated
Oh,
youth
okay, sorry.
services.
Okay, yeah, I'll make the motion that we send us a letter of support.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Carried. Letter sent to, no, that's in the correspondence. Support letter, Acadian Day funding. It's French, it's SNA. I can read this, it'll be in French. I don't have to read it, you've all seen this. So they also need a letter of support.
I'll make that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Carried. Correspondence, private road names. I don't know if anybody has any questions on those. There's an attachment. PVSC service commitment. Approval of funding for Clare and Argyle Acadian Tourism Development Project. And approval of funding for the Argyle Banner Project. And letter sent to Minister Lohr. Proposed service exchange. With that one there was 2 letters that went from different municipalities. And it looks like there's a lot of the same apprehension about what that might mean to municipalities. I think there's a lot of, I think we have a lot of the same comments on what that can do to municipalities. I received a letter here from, I just saw that today. It was received today, that's why. And what it is the annual report for the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation. So it's here. Anybody who wants to read that or whatever, I'll leave it here, and it's available to anybody. And next is financial requests. We have Pubnico Light Monument Society.
I'll make the motion. There's a motion here where we can get them all. To get them all? Yeah.
Oh, there's a memo as well. Sorry, didn't read that.
That's the Donaldson memo.
That's a Donaldson memo.
Yes, I for every year, I know my mic's not on, for every year for, I don't know how many years, when we go through a long list of district community grants, Councillor Donaldson would always ask,
Why don't we do it?
can't we just do this once?
Well, we're going to do it once, Councillor Donaldson.
And so this is the Donaldson memo this is for you, Councillor Donaldson.
They're vented by staff before, so if one is questionable,
Exactly.
it would be
So
taken
why
out.
go through
Yeah.
one? Okay, so what we have is looking for a motion to accept these financial requests. Pubnico Light Monument Society, District 6, $500 for ground maintenance. Bay of Fundy Sea Kayak Symposium, $500. Cover costs of community dinner at the West Pubnico Fire Hall. Wedgeport Legion, Branch 155, District 3, $500 for recognition and honor and ceremony of Legion members that served in the military. Festival Acadien de Wedgeport, District 3, $500. Upkeep at the Butte de la Croix. Club des Audacieux de Quinnen, District 5, $500. Labor Day picnic. We can make a motion to accept all of those. And I see Councillor Bork.
Just a correction, Pumlico Light Monument Society is District 7.
District 7. With that correction. Yeah, but just think, it wouldn't have come out of
Yeah.
yours. So do we need a motion? Did somebody make a motion?
Richard did.
Richard made the motion,
And I seconded
and you seconded. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. That brings us to agenda topics for next meeting or notice of motion by councillors. Was there any question? No questions? Did you have something? You have questions?
How y'all doing? That is a question.
No questions.
And there were two online questions that I
There were
almost
two
forgot to mention, both of which related to the presentation that occurred at the beginning. One was a question about food safety and wanting to maybe get into more of a local food option for this individual. And so we're going to follow that up with the Canadian Food Inspection or Industry Agency, CFIA, how's that? Because we don't really have that answer. They're the ones that provide regulations and the reasons why. So we'll try to get that information. And then the other was whether or not that the pilot project or would be imposed upon eventually to residents. And obviously we didn't have an answer to that. We literally just received the information. So we didn't have an answer. But those are two questions online.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dickon.
Thank you very much. And I, for one, will state here this evening that I would not be in favor of imposing this on our residents.
No.
It would be up to them as far as I'm concerned. And the reason I say that is a lot of people enjoy composting. And they compost their vegetables or their trash as far as what's left over from the dinner table and stuff like that. And they use this soil for planting and stuff like that. So I wouldn't want to take that away from them.
But this machine will do exactly that. It'll compost.
It
right?
will.
And you can use it.
But at the same time, they're using more power to do this.
Yes.
And, I know she says it's green, but at the same time, you're using that power from, 4 to 8 hours each night or whatever to
Mhm.
compost, whereas if
Yeah.
you just put it out in your own little compost pile behind your house,
That's right.
you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no topics or notice of motion and no questions, we're have to go on camera. We have a couple of items to deal with. So we need a motion to go.
camera.
Can we have like a 5-minute break?
You can have 5-minute break so we can talk to former counselors. Have a seat.